Hi, Dave here, and this is episode 23 of the art review series. And this time we're going to take a look at the work of Faraz Shanyar. Faraz Shanyar is an Iranian concept artist at Machine Games, and I think he is situated in Sweden, according to his ArtStation description right here. So Faraz actually is one of the big boys, I think, and he does focus more on characters and some keyframes, and he does have a few pieces doing some designs, even for creatures, but I would say 90% of his work is focused more on people and some storytelling involved with those people. And he does have work that's kind of political in a sense. It's sort of left to the viewer to decide what the piece is about, but I do like it. It's sort of a nice subtle way to give your opinion without having to write anything. I think illustrations have power, and it can help. What's the word? It can help encourage conversation and debate. At least I think so. So yeah, we'll check out some of his work. I did pick out some of my faves. Now this is a great example of his human anatomy. Again, he does focus on people, and you can see in some of his work he does pencil sketches, and I think he does this regularly, and here you can even see some of the pencil strokes. I do think this was done manually at first, and then he did a simple coloring or rendering. It's not really simple, but it's kind of a quick rendering in Photoshop. It's not fully rendered, but it's there. The same goes for this guy. And he does this thing where he likes to add, or his sketch lines are a little more determined and not exactly bold, but they're very, they almost feel sure and confident. And he does like adding some nice strokes right here, dashy kinds of lines. And again, I think his sketches in his traditional sketchpad of the human anatomy does contribute to his level of accuracy. Of course, makes sense, and he does display a lot of the major muscle groups, and his work does look very natural to me, and I do like that. Where it's not overly kind of inflated. It's sort of in the realism world. It leans towards realism and a little more. My point is, okay, sorry about that. The point is, he does a lot of his work is mostly based on reality, even if his subject matter does change. He's not overly flamboyant with the designs. He generally likes to keep it real. And, yeah. And he does, again, a lot of characters in his work. And, you can tell his drawing skills do translate to his painting. Now, the painting in this one is kept simple. It's very essential. And he's not overly fond of, at least based on his work, he doesn't use a lot of brushes. A lot of his brushes are actually pretty simple. Very basic, flat brushes. By flat, I mean, they don't have a lot of texture in them, generally speaking. And again, you can actually see some of the pencil strokes right here. And then maybe he did this manually in a traditional sketchpad, and then he painted it in Photoshop. Again, you can see in his brushwork, not a lot of texture involved. It's that's why his work tends to look smooth. And I think even the background, you can tell it's very. I mean, the shape is different. The brush shape is different, but it's generally smooth. Not a lot of texture. And his work actually tends to look like a gouache kind of painting. And gouache, traditional gouache, does have that effect. If you check out Sid Mead's work, it does have that flat look when it comes to when it comes to painting, right? And again, more character designs, and you can see the human anatomy very apparent in this character. And look at that space between the chest muscles right here, and even the separation between the shoulder and the chest, the way that muscle works. And he even added a nice spacing of the biceps, because not everyone has a nice muscle insertion. My biceps are kind of in this area where I do have a space right here. So yeah, even that hand, that bit of bone right here, it's kind of a tendon. He did show it. So the clavicles are pretty legit. The way he painted the neck tendons or things that connect to the clavicle area, and even some of the traps. So this guy obviously has a great understanding of human anatomy, I would say. Here he even painted some of the fat. Again, his work looks very natural or real in that sense, where it's realistic, you know. So this one is this could actually be a political piece in some way, you know, because war, you know. Now he doesn't do a lot of environments, but he can do them. The approach is kind of the same, I would say. And again, he did use some texture for this one. Makes sense, because this thing is an area where it's essentially destroyed. Maybe it's a war-torn area. But you can see a lot of the flat or non-textured brushes that he uses for his characters. He does use it in his environments as well. Even when he does kind of scenes where, sure, the focus is on characters, you'll see in the background when he does paint them, it's he keeps it very simple, and he can actually paint them pretty well, but I'm pretty sure he just wants to focus more on his characters, because I think that's where he shines the most. So, and I do like the way he left these people right here as silhouettes. And then he detailed this guy just a little more. It's still essentially a silhouette, but he did add a few more values to indicate that this guy is wearing some kind of coat and maybe a beanie. And a lot of his work actually has a very now to me the eyes are set a little too low. But again, this could be some weird, like, that hand looks good though. He did show off the knuckles and that bit of light. He didn't use a lot of lines to indicate the knuckles, but he did use some of the lighting, value painting, to indicate that there is kind of a bone here and a bit of light just right here. And yeah, his theme is generally dark. Almost, it's similar to the work of Mikhail Borulko. If you check out episode 1 of the Art Review series, Mikhail's work is very, almost Soviet-esque. Very dark, very awesome, but it's kind of, you know, war-related, very dystopian-like type of stuff. And Faraz actually has, it's a key characteristic in his ArtStation portfolio. So, you know. Yeah, so this one is some of his, excuse me. So this one is actually one of his traditional sketches on paper. And you can tell, oh, this reminds me of Shit, what's her name? She does a lot of pencils. And it actually looks like this, where there is some line, and then when she shades or adds value, she uses a pencil stump to blend the values together. It's Eliza. You know, I should definitely put her in my list of artists to review, because she does have amazing work. And again, you could tell in Faraz's work, human anatomy is a key thing, and he did go to a very surreal type of thing with the head. Now, I'm not sure if this is traditional, although it looks like traditional to me. But maybe this is a mix of the two. Like maybe he did a simple watercolor and then he painted over it further in Photoshop. Because this one doesn't look like watercolor to me at all. The hand. But yeah, it's fucking awesome. And again, he does a lot of cops and rioters and those types of concepts. And I think that's why his work can fit political stuff or political themes as well, because these are very dangerous times. And so his work does fit, I would say. And look at the way he simplified the gear of this police officer. You know what? It's so sad nowadays, because actually you can't tell the difference between a cop and a military personnel or person, because they're basically the same now with the way they're armed. Shit, you know. Cops don't feel like police or peace officers anymore. You know, in some areas. There are some areas that are actually they're pretty chill and they don't really care. They just want to be left alone. But yeah, again, look at the brushwork. Look at the way he painted this pants. He just added the folds. It's essentially a silhouette, and then he added a darker value to indicate the folds, and then that's essentially it. Maybe some light here, because this leg is a little forward, and I do love the way he just keeps it simple, or his brushwork simple, and it's more about the idea, and because sometimes I can get caught up in using all types of brushes, and I'm actually forgetting the main idea that I should work on. You know, the storytelling, the fundamentals. Yeah, I'm kind of you can get lost in the brushwork. So these are more. Look at the way he simplified that body. It's very simple the way it's rendered. But these are obviously studies of his. Again, more cop gear. Now this one is very experimental to me, I would say. He did use some kind of rake brush for this one. Now this one, again, he does a very dark pieces, and this is actually kind of eerie. Oh, he did use some texture on this one. I did notice that. Okay, even in the background, he did use some texture. But again, you know, the base is the fact that he can do stuff with just flat or simple brushes. The moment he does add a few texture brushes, it just makes his work even better than it was before. With these simple brushes alone, he's already kind of but he is already in a like top tier level of skill. But the moment he adds a few more brushes to kind of, make it or add a little more variety, it just adds more to his sketch or painting. Now, this could actually be some kind of poster. And look at that anatomy. And again, the subject matter is kind of, it's not comfortable to look at, but it's the fact that I can feel something. Even his color choices, it's, exceptional. Again, more character designs, and he does a lot of these in Grayscale. And look at the way he simplified the back leg. And he doesn't just do character turnarounds. His characters actually do have some kind of a character to them. They have an expression. They have a bit of storytelling in them. For example, you can see this guy is a bum. He doesn't have any shoes. He's kind of not well put together. He's carrying an alcohol bottle. He hasn't shaved in a while. So there is some kind of storytelling going on here. And that's another thing in his work. His characters are not, just kind of in the standard 3/4 view types of poses. They're very dynamic. They have storytelling in them. Another good example of that. So these are more, these are kids essentially, skateboarders. And even the way he paints the jackets, the folds of the attire. And he keeps the rendering simple. And you can even see some of his, it's kind of a square brush, a directional brush, I would say. It's the shape dynamics is set on a directional type of thing. And it does add smaller line brushes or brushwork to indicate some of the hairline and some details you can see here. And again, it actually does look like a gouache in a way. Because gouache painters or people who paint with gouache, they tend to focus. You can see a lot of the shapes in the rendering compared to, say, an oil painter. They like to mix stuff usually when you're oil painting. But he did simplify the background. And again, it's pretty good with the human anatomy. He can paint some faces, and he does add expression to the face, and it's so well done. Now this one is actually pretty saturated for his work. If you check out his ArtStation portfolio, which I will link in the description below, his work generally tends to be dark, and this is pretty rare to see in his work. So, but again, you can tell he still paints the same way. Very simple brushes, some texture here and there, and maybe some mixture brushes for the sky and clouds. But it looks really cool, doesn't it? I love these kind of purple violet things. This could actually be some kind of wallpaper. He did a sequence thing here of this soldier or cop speeding through a hole. And I do think he can do a lot of keyframes because he has some work in his portfolio that's I would consider it a keyframe. And I'm not sure if he does a lot of storyboards as well, but I'm pretty sure if he did storyboards, he wouldn't have a hard time. It would be very natural to him because the way he can visualize a certain sequence of shots is interesting. Now this one is you can see it's a pencil sketch initially, and then he painted it or painted some of it in Photoshop. And I love the ornamentation of this head. There's kind of a contrast between the darkness of the body and this kind of a weird thing, and then the colorfulness of the head design, right? And it's very ornamented. It actually looks very Middle Eastern. If you look at the some of the mosques, is it a mosque? Because they do have a lot of geometric designs in their ceilings, and it does remind me of this, or this reminds me of that kind of a bluish, kind of colorful repeating patterns. So that's very interesting actually. Now this one is not necessarily a keyframe; it's more of an illustration, I would say. Theme-wise, it's obviously in a dystopian set world. Mechanized cops, I would say, or soldiers, or both. Again, you can see a lot of the basic brushes that he does use. I actually can't find any textured brushes, but Yeah, I love the way he did the lighting. It's kind of showing off in this guy, and even a little bit on this guy in the background. And yeah. And he can technically do environments, as you can see. Now these ones are some of his spit paints. Now spit paints, I think these are very quick 30-minute types of paintings. Spit paints are speed paintings, I would say. And I'm not sure where that spit paint or where this spit paint thing started, but it's essentially a speed painting, and it's a quick painting. Apparently these were done in 30 minutes or so. And you can see the way he simplifies with it's very gouache-like, focused on the shapes, not just the actual silhouette of the figure, but in terms of rendering, very shapy. Yep, some kind of soldier. Oh, this one is an explosion of something. Again, war related, and this one is more conceptual, editorial. He did add a soft glow in the background, or blur. Oof. Now I'm not sure how big he goes for this painting, or maybe this is the actual size of the original painting. But as you can see, human anatomy wise, and again, as you focus in on the details, it starts to look very impressionistic. But if you zoom out, it looks pretty tight. So I do find that interesting. Look at the way he did the elbow thing here to indicate the bone, right? The way he painted the hand. He did use some texture in some parts, very minimal, but he did use it in the chest and the bicep and shoulder, just a little bit, but it's there. You can even see it in the background a bit. I would say this is a dark themed character, but it's so well done, right? It's very tight to me, in this view at least. But as you zoom in, it's, and I love the way he simplified everything in this shadow, and it makes sense because it's in shadow. So what's the point of detailing it, right? The same goes for this area, and he did add a nice kind of a light here, kind of a bouncing light. Yeah. Now this one is more of I would say a political type of thing, concerning a border, I would say. I think so. And again, you can tell, I think painting cops or soldiers comes easy. He does have, I would say, a good visual library of what they look like, what the helmets look like. And I do like the way he added this bit of highlight coming from a light post somewhere in this side, I guess, behind you, looking at this. And look at the way he simplified the background. It's a lot of circles, soft brushes, and eventually it fades to the background and has more blur. Now these are a lot of cops, and look at the way he simplified the bottom part of this guy. It's kept very minimal, and the focus is definitely on this guy hitting this guy. So not everything has to actually be painted. You can focus your painting on certain areas, and essentially the viewer will fill up or fill in the gaps of your artwork. Again, another soldier. Again with the simple brushes. You can even see the circle brush right here. The silhouette of the leg in the back. Although if you look at this whole thing from afar, it looks kind of like well rendered. But if you zoom in, it's actually, it feels impressionistic. You can see a lot of the strokes. So I think that's the trick, to zoom in and render stuff, maybe. Or maybe, I'm not sure. I don't really have a video of Faraz painting, so I wouldn't exactly know his approach to painting digitally, but I think it's very comforting to know that your piece can look very kind of tight, without being overly tight about it. Hopefully you know what I'm trying to say. Now this one is a very conceptual piece. You can tell the human anatomy is good. He did. Oh, look at the way he painted the lats and the belly button. The separation of the ribs from the kind of midsection or the abs. Pretty cool. So this guy is wearing a dress, and yeah. Now again, this one is. Now this was. This is another one of his more dark stuff, almost dystopian-like in nature, and I think he did start this originally on paper, and then he painted it in Photoshop. Or was this done traditionally? No, this was done. The coloring was done in Photoshop, but this one actually has a little more texture, which I do like to see. You can even see it right here. Yeah. But this one actually is more of a cover. It feels like a cover to me in some way, or kind of for a graphic novel or a comic book. The brushwork is kept simple, not a lot of texture involved. And yeah, this one feels more like a cover for something. Now I think this one is a kind of study. Maybe he did start, or maybe this whole thing is in watercolor. Nah, it can't be. Maybe he did kind of a basic watercolor sketch, and then he refined it in Photoshop. Probably. Now I do like this GIF. So I think he did start with the gray sketch in the very beginning, and then he essentially decided on the color scheme, and then after that it's more about it finding the right design. And what's so cool about GIFs or GIFs like this is that it shows you that you don't actually need to know everything in the beginning. All you need to do is have an initial idea and then use the creative and iterative process to find or refine the idea even more. So you don't have to, you can tone down the pressure in the very beginning with this understanding that you can do things layer by layer, and eventually you will reach a more fleshed out concept. Now this one is it feels very classical to me. First of all, the pose, or the way this thing is composed, it feels like a traditional classical painting. I think the term is neoclassical. Kind of the new classical, or this new kind of they wanted to go back to some of the traditional concepts in the Greek era. You know what I mean? I'm not sure. Shit, I'm forgetting my history. And this was the gray sketch he did beforehand. So this one is one of his Spawn interpretations, and I think he was commissioned by, or did work for Todd McFarlane, the famous concept artist. And what's so cool is that he does a lot of grayscale paintings actually, and I do think you need to do more of these, or I need to do more of these, because it it kind of saves time. It helps you focus on the actual painting. Sorry. I think it helps you focus on the idea, and having to put off color for a while, I think, is a nice way to kind of fine-tune your focus on the subject matter or the story and stuff like that. I'm not sure if he used, maybe, oh shit, did he use some photos here? Maybe some Photoshop brushes, yeah, but that's pretty much it. Everything is painted. And look at the way he painted the feet. There's this, he did show that kind of part of the foot that's that meets the ground. In this, I'm not sure what the proper term is, and he did add that nice change in value to indicate the difference between the part of the foot that's elevated close to the arc or to the apex of the arc, and then the parts of the foot of the sole that meets the ground. And I think that's very interesting the way he painted that. He even added a bit of the fold in the feet, or a wrinkle right there, a few of them. Now this one is more of a peaceful scene. Now this could be somewhere in his home, not sure, but yeah. Now this one is more another human anatomy thing, study perhaps. And I love the way he showed some of his pencil strokes. They're almost pencil-like in nature. In some areas you can see in parts of the head. And again, the way he does his human anatomy. I guess his basing. Oh shit. I'm sorry. His traditional knowledge of you know what? Fuck it. You know what? The brushes he does use for these ones are very different. They're almost chalk-like or pastel, right? And he does use more of the kind of pencil-like strokes. Yeah, it does look very pastel to me. Look at the way he painted this helmet. You can see a lot of these strokes. Ah, that looks pretty cool, eh? Yeah. And he did simplify the arm to just a silhouette with some nice dashy types of strokes. And yeah, it does look very pastel to me. So this one is an Iranian kind of a suit. Hey. You know, Faraz actually has a few mech designs. He doesn't have a lot. It's very rare, but he does have a few. And, you know, he should... Well, I'm not going to say he should, but I think if he did do more, it would still look pretty cool. And again, his color choices are very, very interesting. Maybe he does use some kind of gradient map. Ping pong. Again, this is some kind of a retro cop with the classic baton. More character work, and again, he does have expressions on his characters. And look at that. Look at that look. It's very expressive to me. Again, his character designs do have emotion, some storytelling. Even the pose does indicate some of the characteristics of the actual character, or it contributes to the feeling you get by looking at this at these folks right here. Oh, this one is a pencil sketch he did, and is it a pencil? Oh shit, this could have been done digitally. Or maybe he did do a pencil sketch in the beginning and then he refined the sketch even more in Photoshop. I'm actually reminded of the work of Kim Jung-gi. Right? I mean, you can kind of see it. It does look a little bit like his work in this pose. So these are some works I believe he did for Pirates of the Caribbean, the part 5. I love the long hair though. Look at that hand. Oh, that's so pretty. Ooh, shit, look at the amount of scars in the leg. Okay, let's move on. Some more Pirates of the Caribbean stuff. I think he was trying to come up with some designs of the effects. Oh, I love this chick. And again, he did this in Grayscale, and I think that's enough to help figure out the idea. And once you're kind of set, you can just color it later on. So, yeah. And again, human anatomy wise, that's awesome. More concepts for how this, or how the pirates would look like with the effects. And you can see some of the organs just very nice effects. Yeah. This one is actually pretty close to the actual film. If you see the way the effects end up being in the film, this one is pretty close to the actual final look. Ooh, look at the way he added some of the hairs in the forearm with some nice lines. This could be some kind of David and Goliath type of thing. So this guy is obviously battling giants. Oh, I found this thing in one of his portfolio posts or ArtStation posts. It's kind of a creature design, and maybe he could design stuff for Avatar. I don't know. I mean, this is pretty interesting to me. I would expect to see this this would fit a world of the Avatar thing. Yeah, I'm actually kind of excited for part 2. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but I'm very excited for it. If you're kind of a YouTube kind of dweller, you've seen this image in a lot of kind of music videos or lyric type of videos or Trap Nation kind of channels. And look at the way he simplified the folks in the background. And again, his pretty cool experience with drawing military, police kind of attire and equipment. And again, remember what I told you earlier about him painting backgrounds? Look at the way he painted this airport in the background. I actually thought initially that it was a photo that he simply photobashed, but this thing is actually fucking painted. So I'm very impressed. And again, the way he paints his characters is essentially the same way he paints his environments, which I think is very interesting. And there's a nice consistency in his work. And the atmosphere of his colored pieces, whenever he does his colored types of keyframe illustrations, it looks the mood is set well. And yeah. A very nice storytelling going on here. So this is Mickey Mouse. This is Goofy and Donald Duck. So these are some stuff for images he did for Call of Duty. And again, he does start with the grayscale and then eventually builds up to the color version. This character actually, now first of all, this thing looks fucking amazing. It's kind of a keyframe. This could actually be some kind of wallpaper, screensaver for a game or something. This could be a jinn. I think in the Muslim world, jinn is essentially a demon kind of thing. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But this design reminds me of a lot of the Sumerian types of shit. They do have a similar look, especially with the beard. And you can see a lot of the remains in Iraq and Iran, I would say. And what's so sad is because of the war, a lot of those structures are destroyed, but there are still a few, and they do have this kind of design, they're kind of the Anunnaki, I believe, which I'm very fascinated by, that kind of topic. But anyway, awesome rendering. Oof. Now this one is a kind of air battle, done in the sky, and I love the way he illustrated the jet stream emanating from this jetpack, and I love this guy right here, hiding behind clouds, and even the way he paints clouds are very interesting, right? And the same goes for this guy, the kind of jet propulsion thing going on. Wow. Oh, this is one of his mechs, so you can tell the environment is set in Iraq or Iran, in the Middle East, because, the dome, and the architecture, the kind of square corners, or pointed corners, very geometric. But again, let's focus on this mech. Wow. Now, he didn't actually have to define every single mechanical part, but from afar you can tell this thing is a mech, and there's some kind of storytelling going on. It's kind of slightly being managed by this guy, and this could be the pilot overseeing things in the background or in the top of this nice mech. Oh, and this was the Grayscale version. And you can see he essentially determined most of the painting in this phase, and then the following phase is just coloring and defining the interiors of the silhouettes. This one's another very interesting piece. He did keep the environment simple, although I do love the way he illustrated the sunset in the background. It's so kept simple. And again, his brushwork doesn't have a lot of texture for the most part. And if you can, he'll leave certain parts in the silhouette version, because you don't actually have to render every single thing. And he focused his rendering more on the head and some of the clothing jacket thing right here. Excuse me. Now this one is actually a nice keyframe, but the way this thing is painted, it looks very rendered to me and very fine. So, oh gosh, pardon me. Sorry about that. But yeah, I do love the kind of depth going on here. This guy is in the foreground, and then you get this kind of middle area. This could be some kind of ambush, and then you can see, in terms of value, this thing is slightly lighter, obviously, and again, each character is painted pretty well, especially when it comes to the fabrics or the folds and the drapery. And again, even if he does use very simple brushes, he does have his variety of hues or values does compensate for the lack of texture in some areas, which I think is it's a nice way to kind of balance things out, right? So this one could be some kind of keyframe. This actually reminds me of a certain artist, Alexander Madrijev. I'm not sure how to pronounce, and I can't actually recall his last name, but he does a lot of keyframe, cinematic types of illustrations and artwork, yeah. Again, this thing is painted. Even the background, I think, is painted. Fuck. I love it though. It's very dynamic. He did add a kind of motion blur here for the foot. This could just be painted. And there's a nice contrast. The fire, the explosion is in the background, and then this figure is kind of set on top of that, and he did add a nice red glow, kind of seeping through this character right here, and some nice highlights of the plane. And there's also a nice complementary thing going on here. You can see it. The sky is cool, and then the flooring or the platform or the ground and the plane is kept warm. So there's this nice yin and yang, right? So this one is another kind of political thing. Iran, you can tell by the colors of the flags, it's Iranian. I'm not sure what he's trying to say, and that's the awesome thing about stuff like this, where you're kind of left. It's not a direct kind of message. It's something that makes you think and ask questions, which is very important nowadays. Asking questions in everything nowadays, at least according to trusted sources, is pretty much settled and determined. You know what I mean? And I think doing stuff like this is a nice way to combat that kind of authoritative kind of thing. You know what I mean? Makes people think, and if the painting is done well, it's actually a pleasure to look at, even if you may not agree with the message. If it's done or painted well, I think he did some concepts for the Predator, the recent one. And he did the insect kind of thing, or this was his interpretation for the film. Very nice design, and again very simple brushes, but because he keeps his tool set simple, he can focus more on the design, which reminds me of this concept of because I think Steve Jobs wore jeans with the sneakers and the black sweater, and the reason why he did that was apparently because he wanted to focus more on his work and kind of automate the things that are not as important, and that's his fashion, So that's kind of an interesting, way to think about it, or to shift your focus more on stuff that's important, right? Oh, he did add some texture here. Just a little bit. And he did use... this is definitely a photo in the background. But yeah, he did paint over it eventually. Some more Predator concepts. And again, he does figure things out in the grayscale mode, generally speaking. At least based on his portfolio. More Predator stuff. This one actually looks more like a classical painting to me. The posing, it's very kind of epic. Another political kind of thing. Oh, I do love the chick in the background, right? But definitely very political. And this can apply to all sorts of scenarios. And again, he's pretty good at. He's done enough of the riot police, military kind of stuff, or subject matter, that I think he can paint these sorts of things from imagination pretty well. Wow, even this thing is kind of political, eh? Or kind of, it makes you think. So let's analyze this for a second. So you can see a lot of phones. They're taking a picture of their own demise, right? And wow, that's powerful as fuck, man. Or at least that's the way I see it. So this guy's obviously the Grim Reaper. You can see the scythe. And then you can see a lot of phones flying because he's obviously, killing a lot of folks. But everyone else is kind of not moving or stepping back. They're just kind of taking their phones out and I think this says so much about the apathy of our current culture, where instead of engaging, there's this culture of not engaging and just taking your phone out and recording, and it's yeah, very awesome. I do love stuff like this. It makes you think, right? Oof, I love the way he did add the kind of cast shadows right here in the background. And look at the way he indicated that. He didn't use a soft brush for the most part. He used a hard brush, a hard-edged brush. And then he built up the gradation of value slowly. Which is very interesting, right? And again, he's pretty good with painting these sort of things. Sort of dystopian war. Oh, look at that gun. Damn. And again, you can see he did paint the bullets. Very simple. Well done. And not a lot of texture in his work. He compensates by the variety in hues, and that provides the texture. Now this one actually reminds me of Frank Frazetta, the way the pose is kind of set, and of course it looks very, kind of like a barbarian type of thing. He did use some texture for the mountains, a bit, and some sky or sun light elements. But again, his brushwork is kept very simple in terms of texture. I mean, this one is actually kind of brushy. You can see here, it has a lot of hairs, I would say. And I love the mood, the color scheme. I'm not sure if he has a reference photo to work with when it comes to colors, or he just kind of makes it up as he goes. And again, maybe he did start with a excuse me. Maybe he did start with a grayscale and then eventually built up the colors layer by layer. I love this. So another character sketch. Very simple sketch, black and white. Some grayscale rendering, very simple, and then he did add some color. And you can still see some of the initial or most of the initial line work / paint in the grayscale, and then he did add a basic color, perhaps in multiply mode. Okay, I love this. So this is, I think we're ending the show very quickly now, or we're in the end of this beautiful show. So we'll start from here. So he did again grayscale, determining the design, the composition in this level, right? Even this mech, you can see it's more of a silhouette. Some elements of the design is showing up, but it's not completely there. So this is a nice way to say or to understand that you don't need to determine everything in the beginning. You can work your way towards the finished product. And then after he did this initial grayscale painting, he did add some color. I'm going to assume with some multiply modes. Not multiply. With a variety of blending modes in the kind of layering system in Photoshop. And he hardly changed anything in terms of painting. Just a few things, like adding the sun and some extra details, but not so much. The mech is still the same, except for the color. There's some kind of a bleed, but nothing is defined with the mech. And then after that, after he did the initial composition design, silhouettes, big picture stuff, nice color wash, determining the color feel, kind of the base colors to work with, and then he went in for the kill. Look at that. I love it. And again, his brushwork is kept very simple, not a lot of textures. And I think it's a nice approach because it helps focus you more. It helps you to focus more on the subject matter. Now, even this mecha still, you can see a lot of the silhouette in the bottom part because obviously it's in shadow, but he did add detail on the top because obviously there's this light casting in this direction right here. And look at that missile thing. It missed this guy. And I love the variety of colors in this one. It's a little more colorful for me. And I actually like it because, you know, in his work, it's generally darker and very dystopian-like. I mean, this is kind of dystopian in a way because it's obviously destruction, but the colors are kind of fun. Even some of the stuff right here, it's just way more interesting. And I love that bit of glow in this area. Look at the way he added a fluorescent light right there. Wow. And yeah, there's this nice glow coming from this light source in the top. Wow. So that's it for this video. Please do follow Faraz Shanyar on ArtStation. I actually haven't found any other relevant links, at least in my current notes. But I do suggest you follow his you follow him on ArtStation because he does have a lot of very interesting work. And I hope you have a good day. Keep painting, and most of all, stay free.